Et bonjour à toutes et à tous, bienvenue, je suis Franck Payen, aujourd'hui je reçois Liza Enebeis et je vais parler en anglais. Donc pour ceux qui ont l'habitude de nous suivre sur la chaîne YouTube Adobe France, habituellement c'est toujours des sessions qui ont lieu en français. Et comme nous sommes en train de suivre les intervenants autour de Type Paris et que nous avons la chance de recevoir des designers internationaux, eh bien les talks vont se faire en anglais, donc c'est la dernière fois que vous entendez du français pendant l'heure et demie qui va suivre. So I was just warning them because some of them are gonna say like, why isn't it French today?
I'm really sorry. But in a few days,
You're
I'll
gonna
be speaking French fluently.
Yeah, that's
Well,
how it's supposed to
I'm
be
trying. I'm
anyway.
working hard on it. Sorry for that.
No,
Anyway.
that should be okay with our audience. So for the ones who just happen to be there for the first time, Type Paris is a workshop organized by Jean-François Porchez from Typo Foundry. And he's doing that 5 weeks in a row, and every Thursday this year he's gonna invite 2 guests, and I'm gonna interview 1 guest each week. So we had the chance to receive Christine Harf last week. We received also Maria Montes, Dan Reynolds, and today I'm very happy to receive you, Liza or Liza?
Yeah, Liza.
Liza is better. Okay.
Okay.
I should have asked about pronunciations first.
So far, so good.
Thank you. So, can you tell us who you are, what you're doing? If you had a few words to describe yourself and explain the world, who you are.
I'll explain the whole world.
Yeah, the whole world.
Well, let's start with I'm Liza,
and
well, I'd like to say that I am British by birth, Greek at heart, and Dutch by design. And currently I'm obviously in the Netherlands, and I'm creative director at Studio Dumbar. But alongside that, I also co-founded and co-host Type Radio for anyone out there that's ever listened to it. It's a radio channel on type and design. And and most importantly, I am an extreme collector. I love to collect or search for things, and I focus with books. But if you tell me tomorrow you're going to collect this, I think I would also enjoy doing that.
Collecting anything.
Well, collecting no, but let's say collect books.
Books is a big start.
Yeah.
I think so. So we're having a few guests today on the chat. For people who are there for the first time with us, it's live streaming right now on Thursday on YouTube. And if you want to ask any question, you can use the chat down there. So hello Alexandre, Gilles and Toria. Welcome from Tahiti.
Whoa. Wow, that's impressive.
People, where are you coming from? Because we've got Tahiti, and I don't think anyone comes from further.
Yeah.
What time is it in Tahiti?
What time is it there?
It must be end of the afternoon, I guess. No. So, and there are the 30 seconds lag. So people are gonna hear our questions, and they are gonna reply in 30 seconds.
Okay.
No, don't worry too much about that. They are not listening.
Okay.
And it's complicated to make a sentence with not.
No, don't worry.
So, Liza, I'm gonna share a little bit of my screen for people to understand a little bit more about you. When we're looking for you, we're looking for Love Liza.
Yeah.
.nl. That's what you do.
Yeah.
Which
you see my beautifully designed website here? I thought try to be straight to the point.
Straight to the point. So I think we're going to talk a lot about Studio Dumbar. We're going to talk a bit about Type Radio. And can you explain what are design rhymes and books and letters?
Okay. So
let's start with from bottom to top.
From bottom to top. Design rhymes.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, as a designer, I don't know. I mean, this is actually a project that I started with my partner. And late at night with maybe a glass of wine, maybe,
Or
or two. And we thought, we always like to play with words, and we thought, well, there's actually an area that has not been discovered yet, and that was writing poetry about graphic design. So one thing led to the other, and then we started basing the rhymes on familiar songs. So if you look through the rhymes, there's a few of them. For example, if we go all the way, if you scroll down,
the way down.
Okay, where is it? Shall I have a look?
Please. I let you move through there.
Yeah.
Because this goes back to 5 years ago.
This goes, so this has been a long project, so it only starts on late at night. So, for example, this is the Frank Sinatra song, strangers designing type, exchanging outlines, wondering if the kerning's right. I'm not going to sing on it. This is like the worst thing that we do.
I need a piano to
exactly. So you get the idea of how bad that is, and we are actually the whole aim of this was not about quality, but we were really looking for the worst kind of poetry you can imagine. So if you have any poems about design, then please send it to me. I'll publish them on Design Rhymes. I'm telling you, my career really didn't take off as a poet after this.
Yeah, that's sad.
So
that's a very
I still
sad
stuck to my day job.
That's good. Sometimes things have to happen.
Yeah, exactly.
So you were talking about collecting things, and not only rhymes, but books.
Yeah.
And that collection goes on the Instagram.
Yes.
And where do those... And this time it's not just a couple of publications, it's 1,000 something?
Yes, but these are actually... I collected books, I think, from a very, very young age. Actually, when I was when I first started art school, I always had this feeling, I want to become a book designer. And I love the idea of a book being an object in itself. Not necessarily, of course, I like to read, but I like the idea that you could buy sort of a block of design, that you could have this object and keep it for a long time. And also I feel like books also are a way to they also describe a little bit about who you are. If I go to somebody's home and there's no books, I feel like, okay, what's happening here?
Yeah, that's secret or something.
Yeah, and and you can see by the types of books that people have, you can really understand what they are as a person. And and it's also a way to, when you go to a designer's house, I see a lot of the similar books, and then I feel like we're all part of the same tribe. Same community. But it's also a way, collecting books for me is a way to relax. I go into, it's something that I usually do on the weekends. I will go to a bookstore and always search and search. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a book about design. It can be in all subject areas. And just to stop you right there, there's a book that magazine that I've been looking for over maybe 7-8 years. Oh, wow. Because I also don't feel like you go, I think if you wait long enough, you can also find something. I don't mind that it's secondhand. Find something at a reasonable price. And for example, the Playboy Magazine, I think this is an interesting...
is it in Braille?
Yeah, it's an interesting magazine because Playboy for several years produced a magazine also in Braille. I think that is I think really I think it says a lot about the quality of writing also about Playboy. They had for example Anaïs Nin was one of the writers in the 60s and 70s. And the contradiction, like you expect Playboy to be such a visual medium, and then it suddenly, that actually can work, that it's actually about the written word and not about the image. So this was something I looked for, it was 7-8 years. I had read about it and I thought, wow, I really want to see what this copy looks like.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, the cover I think is extremely powerful with this, with the logo, the on the cover, just straight to the point.
It's one very not shameful Playboy to have in your.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not the one that. Yeah, this is the one that you can.
You
live
can
out.
live on. Yeah, that's great. I had no idea about that. It's like.
And so that was really a very, very good find. And then within these books, I have several type of books or magazines I collect. I collect a lot of the Stedelijk Museum catalogs designed by Wim Krauw.
Wow.
And which I find a very big inspiration. They always talk about him, or he's as a modernist and very much influenced by the Swiss.
Mm-hmm.
But if you really study all the covers and all the designs he's made for the Stedelijk, I think they're not as strict to the grid as you would expect. It's really there's a lot of expression, and which I think is really impressive, and also it's a big inspiration for the work we do.
That's great. I hadn't.
So every day around 6 o'clock, I will publish one of the things. On Sundays, I usually also photograph the books, and it's a way to.
Sunday is the day of photography.
Photographing for the next 2 weeks, and then and it's a way to re-look at the books I have and revisit them. Otherwise, they just sit there on the shelf, and then you don't pay attention.
Oh, that's awesome. And do you have like people sending you books?
Yeah, not so often. So this is, please send me books. Please send me books. No, but not so often. I mean, not so often. But I always say I would like to start up a book adoption center. Like I could adopt books, and then friends of mine always say, "Yeah, that's like you're starting a library, Liza. So maybe you shouldn't do that." But
so if you're doing a library, people are gonna get out with the books.
Yeah.
Maybe that's not exactly.
Exactly. No. I don't want to lend them.
Yeah, you can come and just read them, but you don't escape with them.
I have to. On the other hand, I also now I'm going through this phase that I like to buy books. And if they're sealed, I don't want to open them. So I keep them there, like waiting for that moment to open the book. So it's how can I say, a strange relationship.
You're starting to be more a collector only of the object. And
of the object.
Not of the content.
Yeah, so I go to the bookstore to read it.
Oh, the same one you got. Or
exactly.
Do you buy like maybe two copies?
Sometimes.
Ah, yeah, that's good. That's a very interesting way of seeing things. So we got abandoned by Tahiti.
Yeah. Hello.
Good evening. It's 2 a.m.
Yeah. Wow. Good morning, I would say.
No, I think it's gonna go to bed and watch a replay. So everyone who knows that, we got a replay available right now. So if you want to find the first 15 minutes, you just go back in time in YouTube, and we're gonna try to see how we can work with that. So those are all your thousands of books, and you still
4 or 5. I don't know.
How many do you still have waiting? 4,000?
4,000 or 5,000.
Wow.
I don't know.
So you've got like
I have work to do.
A couple of years. Yeah. A couple of years ahead for that.
Yeah, I hope so.
Okay, so we're just waiting until everything is there. So that's a big part of you. And then, so you had the poetry, you had the books, and you get the letters.
The letters.
What kind of letters do you receive?
Yeah, that was advice letters. I think there were, to say something about that, that was also actually it started with a lot of questions I had myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I really wanted to answer also myself.
Mm-hmm.
But then taking it too seriously was not an option. I mean, humor, I think, plays also a role in the work, my personal work, or in the work I do. So I would take questions that I either heard from colleagues or questions I had for myself, and always try to find an alternative answer. So it's always a little bit of a wink and a little bit cheeky, I think. I think there's a nice one on actually, which is not so funny, that is in here. That is, it was a question from a colleague of mine that talked about if he could make a difference to the world. It was a poster about poster design.
Designer and female designer?
No.
Posters? Maybe I have not been there yet.
Or if you...
Change the world with one poster.
Exactly.
That one.
So, if I read out the question, because it's hard for... you can...
You better?
This was a colleague of mine, and he wanted to know if he could actually make a difference with designing a posters. And of course, posters, at least in the Netherlands, are actually losing a bit. There's not a lot of space for them anymore. A lot of us are not making posters so much, but he wanted to know if he could actually use a medium like this to make a difference. He was opposing the government from where he came from, and he wanted to see if he could actually be heard. But he also felt like, how can one person really make a difference? And I found this African proverb which said, if you think you are too small to make a difference, try sleeping in a closed room with a mosquito. And I think that is really important, not only for him, but for us as designers, that we are, we are only one. But I think whatever, we have the tools, I think, and the possibility to communicate to a lot of people. And if we can use them, we should, and not to feel afraid, just because we're one person, maybe we don't make that difference. So just like that mosquito, and trust me, those mosquitoes make a lot of difference to our some nights. So that's for me was one of the nicer questions.
Nicer questions, and a nice way to give a real signification to your graphic design personality, like who you are, what kind of subjects, what kind of fields you're entering into. Did that change a lot through your career? Like, were you already thinking about changing the world? Well,
not necessarily changing. I can't say no. I don't necessarily changing the world, but feeling that actually whatever we do, it is significant. It doesn't mean, and whether it can also be, you can make political statements, but you can also have it can be decorative also. It's not that. It is also, you can bring a smile to someone, or you can make somebody feel good for the day. I mean, we are here as communicators and helping messages be clear. And I think that is something that is not that insignificant, and I think that's a huge value to what we're doing.
No, that's good. You've been say maybe the question looks like the previous one, but you've been doing that for a long time, thinking about the words the questions you're gonna answer, and the way you're gonna phrase everything. Every small question, every small idea you get, you phrase that to make a statement, to make a change, to embody something, some beliefs. You've been doing that for a long time, so it's
okay. It connects also to type radio. I think
type radio and your personality too.
Yeah.
So that's very good. Do people still send you questions, or?
Well, I haven't been active on this for some time. I've been quite focused now with Studio Dumbar. So that is So I always say I need to pick it up. There's still a lot of sorry, I should put my hand in front of the microphone. I have to pick it up. I need to do it. So I will. Continue. at some point in time.
At some point, if somebody gives you the right question,
If it's
directly,
a good question, I'll work on it.
People can still send you questions on Love Liza directly.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, we're gonna see if somebody has a really good question, and people have to watch all the previous questions so they're not asking the same one.
Exactly.
Like go and watch answer 25.
Exactly. I think I'm going to do that.
Yeah, that sounds like a good thing to do. What about type radio?
Type radio, yes, another good project. This project actually started in 2004, and it was initiated by Underwear, the type foundry.
Yeah.
And they were invited to go to Typo Berlin. It was a type conference, obviously in Berlin, and they had this idea to set up a radio station there. So they invited Donald Bakeman from Amsterdam and myself, and they said, why don't you join us to set up this radio? And of course you can be and would you like to be the host of the radio?
Oh.
So we both said yes, and we both had no experience. So that's the beginning of all good, I think, adventures. That's also something I believe in. Just say yes to everything. And then you're going to solve how you're going to do that.
Just say yes.
Everything is possible.
Yeah.
So, we both had no radio experience, but we were both very, very curious by nature. I mean, questions is something that I love doing. So I would rather be on your side of on this side than this side. But anyway, let's take. Let's try it the other way around. And both Donald and Donald is a type designer. I come from a graphic design background. So my knowledge of, say, typography is not like a type designer.
As precise as a type designer.
Exactly. But the point of type radio was not so much to know, okay, how did you kern this typeface? How did you draw this exactly? But to really find out what the person was like behind the letter, behind the face.
Behind the letters, how your personality will influence the way you're designing something.
Exactly.
And do you see like sometimes we were talking about people and their dog and they look alike? And do you have the same thing with the faces, the typefaces? Yeah,
it's a little bit, it's a little bit harder to make the match like with the dog, but you definitely have a better feeling of the person, and I find that interesting also because it's radio. We're talking about a very visual medium, but it's everything. Again, has that it is invisible, but and I mean, of course, it's not only type designers, but there's also graphic designers. So our questions are very open. We have this classic first question, which is, "Are you religious?" Because that automatically you start thinking in a different way. You know that this interview is not going to be 100% about your
work
on the work itself, but parallel.
You're trying to get people like out of their comfort zone.
Exactly.
Like, okay, I came to type radio and I'm there just to talk about type. No, you're
not.
No,
you're not. Well, we do of course we do talk about the work, but we try to start in a different way, just to understand more where this person is coming from.
So I see that we reached number 550.
Yeah.
But sometimes you cut them for 1, 2, 3 parts. How many interviews does that make?
I have to count. Yeah. The reason why some of the interviews are 4 parts was because when we started earlier on, that you to actually load files. We needed to cut up the files because they were too big. Now you can have a file that's 30 minutes long.
Everything is one-on-one since 2014 something.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So 2014, technology improved.
Networks improved.
And now they went on. So I think there's about 300 or more interviews.
Oh,
I haven't counted.
And I see there's a tab called Type Legends.
Yeah.
This one is about very, very, very famous ones.
Yes.
Especially Ed Benguiat, Wim Kummel, you were talking about
Yeah.
him earlier, Adrian Frutiger, Gerrit Nordis.
Yeah.
It's really big
Yeah,
names.
it is. It is really, really big names, and this was a project that we felt that we needed to really. Well, I mean, as it's called itself, it's called Type Legends, and to pay attention to it. And we also asked for bands, music bands, to make music, especially for them. So there's also 4 singles. And then we also asked for designers to design the singles, the sleeves, exactly. And then there's also a little booklet written with a story written by Ellen Lupton that you can about 4 guys walk into a bar.
The same joke over and over, but this time it's about typographer.
Yeah, exactly.
So you mean there's a 20-page booklet about typographers' jokes?
Well, no, it's a story. It's not my joke, so it's a bit better.
Good.
And it's the interviews that you can hear on this are have not been released on the normal website. And it's actually even harder to listen to them because they're all on CD, and now we're not using CDs anymore. That's how old the medium.
Yeah. Didn't you send them like a QR code and people can just they get the CD, so they have the right to listen to it, and then they can
good idea.
To MP3.
Maybe we do that. Yeah.
We need to think about that. Oh, by the way, you received Eric van Boekland to make the one of the design.
Yes, you did.
So we're gonna see him tonight at the Type Paris conference. He's the other one talking.
Yeah, exactly.
Tonight. Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Do you keep on doing that? I see that there are very recent ones in June.
Yes.
All eyes open on Type. How do you set that up? Do you have like a portable studio?
Everything is portable. So we can interview everywhere, but ideally in a quiet space. But we usually go to conferences, and then at the conference we have access to a lot of designers, and we ask them and interview them there. But now we're since this year we're also doing house calls. So we also go visit designers at the studios.
Oh, wow.
Because we also want to talk to a lot of more people in the Netherlands. It's actually the people closest to home is the people that we've interviewed the least.
The least?
Yeah, so now we're
coming back home
people
and trying to
catch up.
To catch up with the roots.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that's really nice. If I have a question about that, so what you told me was like, okay, everything is like very visual in the graphic design and type talks and everything. And how did you first grasp that idea of talking about visual things? How did it?
Yeah, because you're actually talking about the person itself. In the end, it doesn't. I mean, we don't spend time and say, please, describe your typeface.
Every
the detail. But it's about the way of working, the way of doing your. So it in a way it is more the description of the person than the work itself. Yeah. And how you answer, I think, tells a lot about the person you are.
That's
I think,
nice. That's a very nice one. Yeah. So thank you about that part. I'm really curious. And do you know how much time it makes? Everything, all the 300 something.
All the 300, yeah.
Because it's 300 times 30.
That's
40
a really
maybe?
nerdy question.
Sorry, dear. Yeah, I can have very nerdy questions.
Okay.
People following us will know.
Okay, please, somebody make this calculation. No.
But we're not making it right now.
No, let's not make that right now.
No,
but it will be, of course, some things are edited out, but it should be a few days, I think, of interview.
Are there people not on that list and you wish you already had?
There was people that I would have loved to interview.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, we didn't manage to, because unfortunately they passed away.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, and for us, it's not only, it doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be a person that is extremely well known. It's also people that are just starting off in their career, and it's about curiosity and interest in the person, and curiosity for design, and the passion for design. So it's not, it doesn't have to be. It's really more about equality and where we are at the moment with design. And it's nice to hear, like, what it's now 10 years. If you listen to interviews 10 years ago, is that still relevant now? I mean, what we were talking about at that moment in time.
Yeah, that's crazy. 14 years of recording.
Yeah.
It's like going to the BBC archives.
Yeah, now you're making us sound like we're 150 years old.
No, 50.
But we will continue. We will continue.
That's good. That's very good. If I go back there, there's a lot of things happening around Studio Dumbar. You arrived there just after doing Type Radio, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. Well, a little bit after, yeah.
What is Studio Dumbar, and explain it, because we might still have some French audience and they might not know exactly who and how and what it is.
Okay, Studio Dumbar is a branding studio, and it's based, there's a good explanation, based in the Netherlands, and it's you see same green screens?
Yeah, we get exactly.
We didn't change them.
Yeah, people don't see our green screen,
okay.
Except if I make a mistake.
Okay, sorry. We kept our green screen. But anyway, Studio Dumbar is one of the oldest visual identity studios in the Netherlands, and it was founded in 1977 by Gert Dumbar. And the studio always focused on work that was governmental, cultural, non-profit, and business. So it really is the mix of all that work. It's not that we only do cultural work or we only do governmental work. It's really, we need the mix of all types of work, because one work influences the other. And when the studio first started, it was in The Hague. And since, I think it's now almost 15 or 16 years that it moved to Rotterdam. And Gert Dumbar, I don't want to say retired, graduated from the studio approximately 15 to 20 years ago. And since then,
there's still his name on that.
His name is still there.
So he's still there sometimes, just to be sure that people are following the.
No,
okay.
Okay. I mean, we meet up once in a while.
Okay.
And sometimes I dream about him, and I would say, "What would Gert think of this project?" But no. But he's teaching now. So he's not. He doesn't knock on the door and say, "What do what is this logo now?"
You seem to have a very passionate relation to the team you're working with, and I read an interview from you where you were mentioning your work as both a director or a mentor to the people you were working with. So I suppose it has a lot to do with your career around Dumbar and your career before. How would you explain that to people?
To explain a little. Sorry, there's a little bit. To explain a little bit about the team. I mean, we're not a gigantic studio. I mean, in Studio Dumbar is approximately 15 people.
Okay.
Of which there are, from that team, there's about 9-10 designers. So we're very compact, I would say, and it's important that the design, when we're talking about design itself, it's important that the designers find their voice within the studio. Most of the designers are ex-interns. And they joined the studio straight out of college. Okay. So I'm there to really guide them So they find their own voice. So that is what I talk about a bit on when we talk about mentorship.
Mm-hmm.
And the other is when you're talking about leading, you also have to have a sense of direction. You can't, there is always an understanding of where we have to go. But saying that, I always say I know where we have to go, but I never have a preset idea of what the result will be. Mm-hmm. Because if you start also designing the result in the end, then you give no room to anybody in the studio. And it's important that the designers
can have
the answer and have the answer and have their space. Then myself giving the answer, I think it's very limiting to the studio. It's limited. I mean, then it's really based on that one person and a very limited point of view. On the other, talking about Studio Dumbar, we were also since 2 years part of Dept, and Dept is a digital agency.
Okay.
And we merged with them, in 2016, and that had also a very big impact on our way of working and doing, because everything around us. I mean, branding is at the heart of what we're doing, but everything around us is digital. Everything, the brands that we're designing are digital and in all sense. So working with Dept or being part of it really boosted the way we look at work and how we approach design. So we were a small group of 15 people, but the whole of Dept is about 1,200, 1,300 people.
That makes a very different
size
of company.
Exactly. But we are also part of it, and it's it's very inspirational. Especially when we talk about technology and developments in technology, we learn a lot. We will learn a lot all together.
Like you're bringing the graphic parts and they're bringing the...
Yeah, I mean, we are a small part, so we have expertise in branding, and there's other people that have expertise in digital marketing, from web shops to building websites. So there's many perspectives.
So that's the latest part of it from Studio Dumbar, because coming from Dept, no, you don't give a time frame for that. When was that?
2016.
2016, so it's very fresh.
Yeah.
3 years after, it's like a good direction. How did it feel to come from that 15%
into a very big... Well, actually, I found it... with the team, we found it also very exciting. Before, we were a sort of island, also where we were located, and then we entered a bigger space. Yeah, it was exciting. We had so many people with so many different interests that that were a different perspective. It's really refreshing, and you become also. You understand more who you are. It's sort of there's a sort of reflection of who you are, because there's a lot of people surrounding you. If you're sitting on the room on your own, you cannot.
You don't have any other reference.
You don't have references.
That's interesting. That's very good. So what I'm seeing right now around Dept, you're doing all this kind of motion graphic. Does it come from your part? Does it come from the Dept part?
No, it comes all the motion design comes from Studio Dumbar, and actually for the last 2-3 years we're focusing a lot more in motion, and it becomes actually integral part of our work and the brands that we are designing. You
told me that you're also doing some kind of demo festival.
Yes.
Motion design festival in Netherlands.
Yes, and that's really, really exciting. And in November 7th this year, we're organizing a design and motion festival in Amsterdam Central Station. what we're doing is taking over all the screens that are used for advertising, and we're going to show motion work from all over the world. So motion designers that have great work and can send their work in. We've also invited a few people. And this is a partnership with Experian. Experian are the people that own the screens. Yeah, and it was a chance to really look and test what these screens can do and look like. Because we're looking at a lot of advertising, but this advertising, I think, or what we do graphically can be pushed a lot further. So this was an opportunity to see how this could work.
When did that experience start? Is it brand new? Was it running in your head?
Yeah, it was from actually the idea of showing work at the station was for a long time. I mean, I always went to the station. And then
watching the
I was always, you watch all the stations have these screens in the Netherlands. I was watching the screens, and a lot of the times I said, wow, wouldn't this be great to actually show work in these screens? And at some point, when they don't show advertising, they also had some sort of screensavers. And I thought, okay, you can have screensavers, but you can also show really, really interesting projects. And by coincidence, I was giving a talk, and Exterior Media was at the talk, and they approached us and said, would you like to collaborate on a project? So our first project with them was, I can show it to you if you want.
Of course.
If you go to Studio Dumbar again, and you go to this, our first project, we were commissioned to do a series of screens on all stations, and the idea was, instead of all the stations have, of course, names, and what we did was make different names for the cities. But to explain how this is done, this is a variable typeface. So we designed the typeface. And then we, and here you see the full range. And what is nice about this is that we could program it, and we can change the messages instantly.
And is it done frequently?
No, at the moment it's kept to a cities, but you can change it to whatever message you want, because you're
just gonna design a grid.
Yeah, the grid is there. And here you can see the tools that we use, and also it will change also in names. So this is an interesting way also to use the medium, and here in a more graphic way. So it was interesting to see, to use the medium and also push it to its limit. So this was one of our first projects that we used, the medium.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and since we got that opportunity, we thought, okay, this is so great. We could be greedy and say, no, we're going to do all the screens forever. But we thought, no, this really is something that we want to share with all with designers around the world. I think that's also something to think about. It's not always to be so keeping things to yourself. Really open it up and ask other people to experiment and see what they can come up with, and share work. I mean, we see so much great work on Instagram, but it just remains to the few of us. And now we have a public space, even if it's 24 hours, that at least maybe, hopefully, somebody will look up while waiting for the train and see the work. And I think that's important.
So those 80 screens, are they like all synchronized? Like if you turn your head, you're going to see the exact same thing?
Yeah, you can synchronize them, you can separate them, you can pick platforms for different, to show different things. And we will, and that is something that will be done. But of course, all screens are not compact on one track, so you'd
Mhm.
have to walk around the
Walk
station
around
to
and,
look through them. So if you're there November 7th, there will be tour guides to take you around, at least to show you to show you around the work.
Okay, that's crazy. So on November 7th, we have to take tickets. You think the tickets
No,
to
no
Amsterdam are sold?
Yeah, no. You don't need a ticket.
No, you need a
get-
ticket to go to the station.
Yeah, but we have,
From
for the people visiting, we also have special access that you
Mm.
can go into the station also.
Oh, that's crazy. So, and everybody can, so you get the list of people that already participated.
Yeah, these are people that we already invited,
Mm-hmm.
that we knew, and but there's a lot more people that are submitting work, because
Mhm.
there's an open submission and till the 31st of July. So yeah, I know that it's not a lot of days left, but
Mhm.
if you would like to submit, please do.
Just click on the submit your work
Submit
page.
your work, and if you scroll down, there's also specifications,
How it's supposed
how
to look like.
how to submit.
Mm.
That would be
That would be awesome.
yeah, that would
Yeah,
be
yeah,
great.
yeah. So people, by the way, don't hesitate if you find this before. So you said the date was July something?
July 31st.
July 31st. No, nobody has to come late. You have to be on time. But if you get something already available, 10, 80, 19, 20, and you can try to submit 10, 20, or 60 seconds.
Yes.
That's good. That's awesome.
Yeah, and it can be existing work that you have, or new work, as long as it's in the right format and it's not commercial. So if you're sending an ad for, I don't know, for if it's
Any
advertising
brand,
for any brand, then
brands won't pass.
yeah, that
It's
does
just-
not go through, because the idea is a break from the advertising that we're
Mm.
seeing at the moment.
Oh, that's good. That's very good. And I see you've got only like 2 French people.
Yeah, and that's people from France, please.
Yeah, people from France. We
France.
only get Spassky Fischer and Plumur. And
Yeah.
that's it makes me sad. I don't know if we can count Belgium into France. I know they won't appreciate that, but
No, I think the Belgium are counting France into.
so we're gonna see what we can do, and I'm gonna check, because we had a couple of months ago now, we had the Motion Festival in Nantes,
Yeah.
which is not in Paris. It's rare to have events outside of Paris.
Mhm.
They are starting to get traction, and people are trying to escape from the big city, and they had that kind of squared screen, how you call that, losange, and I have no idea, diamond screen with a diamond hole inside,
Yeah.
and people had to submit their work to go there. So
Oh, fantastic.
yeah, that was very funny. When we were working with that, it's part of the logo of Motion,
Yeah.
and they built this very special screen for that.
Wow.
And I had a chance to see that live, and it was
Fantastic.
quite awesome. You could watch everything, and same thing, it was a screen that was there for just one day. They also had Netherlands people,
Oh, nice.
because they received animography, who's the
Yeah.
guy who makes typefaces, moving typefaces like this one. And I guess there's a lot of things in common.
Yeah, exactly.
No, that's very interesting to see there's like a European resonance. And,
Exactly, and that there is a movement happening
Mhm.
now. I think that's great.
that's
If they want to join, it would be fantastic also.
I'm gonna try to see what we can do with that,
Yeah,
and if meeting people.
yeah.
We're gonna see how we do that, and if people want to follow that, there's Instagram, where you can know what's happening, and you can see some of the screens, some of the previous projects.
Yes.
Okay. Very, very, very good thing.
Okay, I'm happy.
I know exactly where I'm gonna share about that work.
Okay, fantastic.
That's good. If I'm thinking about Liza, is it now we've seen that Liza's work goes to so many different things, from the type, from the books, from the collection underwear. Are you part of that?
No,
Not at all. Okay.
No, we're only with Type Radio.
Okay. When I look at your resume, is there any particular project inside Dumbar that you feel like really represents one moment of your life, one where you've been particularly involved in?
Yeah, I mean, I'm involved in with a lot of these projects, but for me, the one project that I think that really made a difference for me was Alzheimer Netherlands, because I found this a very, very challenging project. It was not it was one of the, I think, hardest subjects to understand and also give an answer, and the reason why it was difficult, I mean, we designed the identity for Alzheimer Netherlands a few years ago. This is a foundation that had an identity that needed to be updated, but it also needed to communicate clearer in order to be able to raise more money for funding. And the difficult part was you have on one side the Alzheimer, the disease, of this is what it is about. On the other side, there is the organization. But when you're designing, it's very, very hard to make the distinction. And the beginning part, when I was working with a designer on the project, and of course there's only there were two designers, Rijani and Hanneke, and it was Tom, the strategist. I mean, we're a bigger team. The struggle was to find the right tone of voice, because if you go on the side to represent the disease, it can be very, very heavy. I mean, it's a disease that has no cure at the moment, unfortunately. On the other hand, we are representing the organization that has to raise money. I mean, there is a sort of will there, a passion, you know, and how you find the balance between the two is difficult, because if it's about the disease, and you can imagine if you make a brochure for a patient that it goes into a doctor's office and it's extremely dark, then nobody is interested in not nobody's interested, but it is very hard to pick something up like that. You need to find the right angle, the right angle and the right tone. And the answer also was the most obvious, I think, and the most maybe cliche or most clear answer, because you're also communicating to a lot of people, and has that reference, I think, to the subject matter, but without it being hard in that sense. And we use a lot of bright colors. You see, like very fluorescent colors, and those colors are colors because you remember them. They're not trendy colors, or that for that reason. So that, and to get to this answer, it was really, really a big. It was a struggle, but also a relief. That we got to that point. It was something that we. We were all very, very proud of, and it's I'm proud of all the projects in the studio, but this is something that I really remember. It was a hard process to get there, and also editing work, or looking at the work and knowing what works, what doesn't work. It was a long journey.
Long journey. Do you know how it was received? I suppose you know how it was received by the agency, by the organization. But do you know how it was received by patients and families, maybe? And
it made the organization a lot more visible and a lot more clear, and I think that is very, very important in an organization like that, because they are in competition with other foundations. So they are
getting funding,
and that is the hard reality, that they are really always they're not. you think that they could attract a lot of money, but they're equal with other foundations for equally good for other causes that are just as urgent that we have now. So yeah, their visibility has definitely increased, and we received a lot of positive
feedback from that.
So I'm happy about that.
Yes, and then, yeah, because all of your works for non-profits are like pretty good for like karma.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Okay. Of course, there's that element, but it was that. There is that element, and of course, it makes you think of that. But I also. It was a very, very interesting project also to work on.
Do you know if Alzheimer Nederland got like connections with different foundations around Europe, or if it's not?
That I'm not sure of, but I think there's a lot of the foundations are interconnected, but not necessarily 100% associated with.
Because the project looks completely like it could be developed at the continent scale.
Yeah, I mean, ideally, that they have one. Ideally, it could be a lot stronger if you have one brand for the whole world, because then everybody would identify as the Alzheimer Foundation. But yeah.
And the choice of the people on the visuals, did you make like image bank, or did you make shootings of actors?
And the idea behind the photography is the idea to show a patient in the different states throughout the day, because when Alzheimer is basically your memory slowly you lose your memory, and there you can see the your moods also change. So one hour you're happy, 1 hour you're sad, and that was the idea, to capture these different moods. We made photographs with actually these are all models. We do not photograph patients because that would we do not, it is not allowed, and it would not want to. We need to respect them and not disturb people. But that's why you see the photographs also in the sets of 4, that turning and changing and movement.
Very good project on that. When you're working on that, you talk about motion too. That was the part I saw down there.
And this project, we worked on this project a few years ago, and motion this was the beginning of motion. I would say also in the studio, but motion. But if you see the project, I think this is definitely has a very big connection to motion, because all the parts in all the communication are stills from animated typography.
How did you build that? Like, was it like Illustrator?
All through Illustrator.
So people on your team had to discover how to make masks and things transparent?
Because also a few years ago this was not so easy. But a few years ago, now it's a lot easier.
I can imagine that.
Yeah.
That's good. I'm gonna go back there. The images that were used for your visual on the Type Paris was showing the Science Museum project.
Oh yeah.
Is it also one in which you've been very involved?
Yeah, I was involved. Yeah, that was 2-3 years ago. I was involved in this project. This it's a science museum in Amsterdam, and they were looking for a new brand to unify all their different activities. And they have so many different activities, so it was important that this brand became like an icon or a stamp, so you could recognize it everywhere and anywhere. And it was, if you ever visit the museum, first bring your earplugs. To, maybe go for a drink afterwards. There is like thousands of screaming children.
Wow.
It is like crazy place, and it's really, really, it's really brilliant. There's so many activities that are happening there. So the way we built up the logo was also the idea of a sort of a game or a puzzle. So that's how we were inspired by that. So now they're, so that was a project, from 2 years ago, and they're using it now and everything in all their communication.
No, it's funny because it's Renzo Piano building.
Yeah.
So we're very concerned with his presence in Paris.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
Couple of buildings around here.
Yeah. He's everywhere.
I guess so.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we're talking a lot about graphic design, and now with this kind of project, you're very into the architecture around. You have to, when you're doing signs, when you're doing identity from this kind of project is not only like when you're talking identity to people, they're thinking like maybe a brand logo, maybe paper and a card. But you're going way further than that. How do you deal with the idea of integrating everything around?
Yeah, it is. It's not one identity. I mean, if you think identity, it's everything around it. It's how you walk, talk, speak, and it goes the same. The same thing goes for a brand itself. It's not just. You need to look at it, have an integrated approach. And I mean, with some projects, of course, you mentioned the building. A building is there for a long time, so you also need to respect the building that you're working with. Either it becomes part of it or it's a part. But that's what I find also exciting about identity. You're really looking at so many aspects, like the tone of voice, like how do people speak, how do people behave, how when somebody enters a building, how do you receive them. That already tells you about the identity of a company or a brand itself. Of course, what we design is not going to solve everything. If a company misbehaves, a logo will not save them in the end. That's it's also in the company itself has to
think about
think of their
first behave and then look nice.
Yeah, I mean exactly. But sometimes the way you look can also help in your behavior. I think that is like if you wear a suit tomorrow, maybe this would make a difference, like I know if I wear, not different conversation, but maybe, if I wear something, if I never wear color, but if I wear color, I think I would act a little bit different. You know what I mean.
I think I can see what you're...
And it can help a lot of companies. For example, Transavia, it's a budget airline. And here you cannot see it, but they had quite an old-fashioned identity. They were a low-budget airline, so everybody perceived it like a very, very cheap airline. And we worked on their new positioning and positioned the company a bit. Was budget, but it was also for the business people to travel. So it was no longer it wasn't only for the vacations and by changing its image, by having a slight, I mean, it's still playful, still accessible. It also made a big change on how you feel with this. It doesn't, like for example, Ryanair is also in a budget airline, but there is now, if you look at Ryanair and you look at Transavia, there's a very different feel to it. And I think and it's a very conscious decision to look like this as opposed to, for example, a Ryanair. It's because it targets a different group of people also.
So how was the team involved in making the screens and making all the mock-ups of the work? I suppose it was something, the UX, user experience thing, was worked on your side, on the Studio Dumbar side?
Well, in this case, we worked with an online team that was not part of Studio Dumbar, and we were responsible for the branding part. So the UX, say the design of the website was designed externally, but all the visual elements and all the brand elements came from us, and also the strategy came from Dumbar.
And do you guys get the feedback from the teams you're working with those companies, with these other UX services and online services? How do you work with this kind of feedback? Do you incorporate it for later?
Well, now it works different. This was because now we're part of Dept, and now it is it's a lot. I think is a lot more interesting because we combine teams, and instead of saying okay. In the past, a lot of the times what happened is we design here and then we pass something on to someone else. Now we start the project when it's possible. I mean, it depends on the timelines. That we start together. So we understand. We meet the client together. We're on board together, and it's a lot more integrated and a lot easier. So there is no, and there's no also conflict of interest. It's like you did this and I did, we're sitting we're in the same company and we sit at the table together. So that I think is
beneficial.
It's really, really beneficial, and also to understand and learn from each other what is necessary and what we have to look at beforehand, than leaving it right. To the end.
When we walked into this room, I also asked you a question about. By the way, when you start to be like head of design in that kind of company, do you abandon your first tools, your first creation to create?
I still use email. No, I'm joking.
I only use email.
No.
But you can be very creative with email.
That's true.
With Twitter poetry.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you for that. Well, I do not. I mean, I'm not a hand at the moment. I'm not a hands-on designer. Like I will not.
You're not design the execution.
I don't work on the execution or on the sketching phase, but it doesn't mean that I don't know how to. It's not that I have no contact with the tools. I mean, these are things. I mean, for there's things that I do that I have to do, but yeah, it is the nature of the work. And I also always say it's best that people work on things that they are best at than me. I mean, there's people in the team 100 times better at designing identities than I am, so I would hate to put myself in the middle because I need to practice my InDesign skills for the moment.
Yeah, practicing is supposed to make things perfect.
Yeah, exactly. I do really need to I'm going to take a course on After Effects. Chris, who works in the studio, has promised a course for dummies for me.
Dummies just for you, or just
we do that.
To keep everyone
actually, that's something that we do every 2 weeks. We come together, and it's because everybody has different skills, and we teach each other the skills that we know. And for the last 2 years, we're focusing on motion. So a lot of people are some people didn't know After Effects and now they can use it fluently, and so that's
a little bit of autonomy on that.
Yeah.
Proactive maybe also.
Yeah. So I just happen not to join these groups, but I need to do it.
They're gonna be commenting oh, we don't see you at the meeting.
Yeah, exactly. I know. Chris is gonna say you still need to join the group.
No, that's very good to already know that there are things you can improve and you know what you to go, and also to know that you've got a studio behind you. So in case you're missing something, maybe those meetings help you know, like, oh, I can ask that person.
Yeah, but we are, and since we are in a small team, we all know, like, we all have our specialties in a way.
When they're working with the UX designer, they're or web designer, they're always thinking about what they call the T profile of the full stack. Somebody who knows a lot of different things, a little bit, and very expert in one field. Is it how you composed a Studio Dumbar team?
Yeah, more or less. I think more or less that would be the case. I mean, everybody knows a bit of everything, but there, of course, in the team, there are people that are really good at certain areas, and I always say good in the areas that they also love to
practice.
It's no point trying to make somebody be a great identity designer if they love motion so much. So it's also, that's part of the mentoring, is to also find what somebody feels best at. That's what I'm always looking for, because once you have that, I think then you can do really fantastic work.
And did it ever happen in a studio that you get some intern or some newcomer in the studio that thought his thing was identity, and you eventually made him go through motion, not because he didn't want to go there, but he didn't realize that, and you're like a catalyst on that, like.
There is one guy, Elvin, that joined about over a year ago, and it was more. He always did work on identity. I mean, he always worked in motion, but not to the extent that we were working on it in the studio. And in the beginning, identity was a bit of a struggle, like, I mean, he's good, but it was different. If you saw somebody else in the team would feel like more
comfortable.
More comfortable. But when he worked on motion, it just came a lot easier to
more
him.
Natural
and now, I mean, if I look at him and the work he does for motion, I think it's really, 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 really great, and really great to see that this is something that. Well, I don't know. I don't want to put the to say it's me. I think it takes. It's within. It's part of the team and the studio and the opportunity. And and the opportunities that are there. You can also. I think that's what it is. I think that everybody in the team is very eager and wants to learn and wants to push themselves. And I think that's also Elvin had. That to attitude to find that, and that's what I really, really appreciate from him.
That's very good. That's very fun. Is there another project you want us to look? Maybe a last one. Did you put them like in chronological order?
No. But for example, I mean, the Dutch police. Yep. This is, I would say, is an iconic design of the studio. That was designed before my time, but it is from 1994. Yeah. And I think that really, well, one, it changed all these services in the Netherlands, because the ambulance and the fire brigade also uses the same system. But it's also, I think, for a police organization, in comparison to the rest of the world, I think it is really, I would say outstanding, because this you do not see in any other country.
And that's funny, because I mentioned the trip really more than 10 years ago in the Netherlands, and that's when I had things to visit there. Was like, oh my god, Netherlands design, and all the you don't go only to the like minimalist design from Switzerland, where there's like fewer and fewer things, but there's also rhythm, and there's also angles, the stripes, the colors, very strong colors all around it, and it was really representative at that moment. Like people would say like whether police, you mentioned fireworks and fire department and everything, but also the post is very strong. Even the banks were quite ahead at that time. I think the Amro and what was made at that time. I don't know. I don't know if it's about Studio Dumbar, but graphic design in Netherlands was always way ahead.
Yeah, it's true. And this project, I think, is and what I find interesting about this one is also not about the mark or the logo, but it's really about the system and the striping. That you know it's the police and it's instantly recognizable. And in a way, it also talks about the attitude of the police. It's not aggressive, it's not aggressive. I mean, in a way, it's present, and there's a feeling of also because they use this white, the white color. It's present. It feels secure, but not in a
not in a
bad way. And that, I think, is an interesting
twist of
seeing the police, and I think that also says a lot about the Dutch people.
Dutch mentality and that. Yeah, I do think so. It's always very different from country to country.
Yeah.
And I know in France it's a bit different, the way people see the police and different forces. Then, I don't know, maybe my usual example is always Japan. Yeah. Because they've got like nicest police people. They're just there to help.
Exactly.
And that maybe in Netherlands that's what you're trying to get.
There's authority, but it's not in...
it's not forced.
It's not forced.
That's good. Well, thank you very, very much for your time.
Thank you.
And if people still have a couple of questions, we're still there for a couple of seconds. So you're gonna see that you're gonna hear my question right now. So if you wanna ask any question to Liza, just do it now, because then I'm gonna let you go to Le Tank.
Yeah.
In Bastille and see Jean-François Porchet and be on stage.
Great.
Tonight. Ready?
Yeah.
What is your talk going to be about tonight?
Well, I think we covered quite a lot today, but it will be a talk about the love of questions, searching, and identity.
Good. Very good.
And change,
Change in identity?
Yeah.
Evolution. That gives me a question. Maybe I can wait for tonight, but have you been working on a brand, on the identity of a brand or government or whatever, and working there twice? Like once make an evolution, then come back 5, 6, 10 years later.
Yes. It's funny you ask that. I'm going to show this project also today.
Okay, sorry.
Do you want to see it now, or I show it?
That could be interesting.
Yeah, it's Amsterdam Sinfonietta. This one.
This one. It's completely out of the blue, but
it's funny that you say that. But here you see the identity. But just to scroll back,
I go down.
Sorry, if you go back, I will show you the posters. Sorry, if you one more. Sorry. If you scroll down, so here.
Okay.
This is Amsterdam Sinfonietta. It's a string orchestra, and we designed their identity approximately 12 years ago. Okay. And if you scroll the way down, you can see here on the left-hand corner, this was their old, the logo that we had. And 2 years ago, or 1 year ago, they asked us if we could rebrand their identity.
Okay.
Yeah, and that is a difficult... I mean, you are rebranding.
You are changing your own work.
You're changing your own work, but... I don't know, every time, you change your own work, and so that always this one, it was another one of these projects that were really, really hard, because you know a client for a long time, and then but suddenly but you are so accustomed in working in one way, but you never question the identity. Once it's done, you just keep working, and then you think you know them, and then they're asking you again the same question but slightly different, and then you realize you have to re-challenge each other, and that was really had quite a big impact.
And how do you not take it personally? Like, please change it.
No, but we also were the ones that also recommended it to them, because in the last 14-15 years, the medium has also changed. You know, if you want to, you talk about the mark or the symbol, the ways we communicate, everything is digital. Before, they just had a website and the 5-6 posters that were printed out in the streets. Now we're talking about multi-channels, screens. So you really need to consider all your applications.
And the consistent experience.
And the consistency. And so that was something that we really had to look at. So that was something... but I will explain more about this project tonight.
So let's give it a little bit for the people coming tonight.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And see you in a while.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna switch back to French for half a minute. Donc merci beaucoup à tous ceux qui nous ont suivis. Merci pour les francophones qui sont restés jusqu'au bout et qui auront sans doute appris un petit peu plus d'anglais aujourd'hui, ou en tout cas vu des belles images. Merci beaucoup à Alexandre qui a passé tous les liens, que ce soit le Twitter, l'Instagram. Comme ça, vous avez tous les éléments qui vous permettent un peu de rebondir là-dessus. Si vous avez des questions, n'hésitez pas dans les commentaires. Et puis vous avez vu, si vous voulez soumettre des questions à lovelisa.nl, vous pouvez y aller via le Twitter, via le site. Et puis continuer d'écouter peut-être les Type Radio, sur lesquels il y a quand même pas mal de contenu. On a dit 330 interviews pour l'instant, donc ça peut être une bonne occasion. Merci beaucoup. Thank you very much. Et puis nous, on se retrouvera après l'été, donc retour le 3 septembre sur Paris. Au revoir. Bye.
Bye bye.